Ayakui, Neknamalita, and this is my channel, The Midnight Librarian, and today I will be talking about my most disappointing and worst books of 2025. Before we get into that, I just want to show off this mug because I know I've shown it off before, but I don't get to show it off as often as I would like, so I'm showing him off again. I like his little mushroom on his butt. For the obligatory messaging, if you liked these books, if these books were your favorite books of all time, I am so happy for you. I am so happy that you enjoyed these books. I'm glad someone did. This video is my opinion on these books. They did not work for me, and some way or another, me critiquing them is not a critique on you for liking them. If you have a hard time separating that, and if you have a hard time taking critique about a favorite book, I suggest moving on to a different channel or moving on to a different video. I have plenty in the library. Yeah, I am one person among millions in this world. There was bound to be someone who didn't enjoy these books. I'm sad that it was me. I just kind of want to talk about it. And if you have a problem with that, please see yourself out. You do not need to say goodbye. That is that messaging on that. Now, let's talk about disappointing versus worst. Disappointing, so I don't go into books thinking that I'm going to hate them. Otherwise, why would I read them? I go into books with realistic expectations. Probably a little too realistic, which is a problem I have with 5-star predictions. I will say that some books have slightly higher expectations than realistic, just because I have read authors that I've loved books from before and kind of have that same expectation that I'm gonna love this book. And sometimes it's a flop, and that happens, and sometimes it proves me wrong. It just happens. So some of these disappointing books are some of the books are some from some authors that I've read from before that I loved, and these were just kind of flops for me. And not to say that I hated them, that's for the worst books. It's just, I think they could have been executed better, and that's part of it too, is that some of these books I really like the idea of. The main premise and a synopsis of this book really intrigued me, and I had high hopes for it, and I don't think the author executed it very well. That's for disappointing. For worst books, they're put in worst books because sometimes I do try to go outside my comfort zone and try a book that I have no idea what to expect. I may think I'm not gonna like it, but like I'm pushing the boundaries a little bit. How do I know I'm not gonna like this? So I try it, and it flopped. And other times it is from an author that I've read from before, and it just flops hard. I just hated reading it. And I'm not shy about DNFing a book that if I'm not liking it. However, with these ones in particular, somehow, some way, the author managed to dangle a bit of hope on a string like a fucking carrot at the end of the book that I was like reaching for the whole time, because I knew if I DNF'd then I was gonna have that question in the back of my mind. But what if it got better? And it didn't. I got to the end of the freaking book, and the author took the hope away. Did not get better, and I wasted my time. I wouldn't say it was a waste of time. I know I don't have the little nigging voice in the back of my head going, but what if? What if it got better? What if that last couple pages was what everyone thinks is the good part of the book? So that's my explanation for that. Let's go into my most disappointed reads. First one, I feel like it's on everybody's, and that's Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. I have done a ranking of Emily Henry's romance books in the past, which I'll have linked. Beach Read is on a lot of people's top of the list. Beach Read's at my bottom of the list. Great Big Beautiful Life kind of goes right on top. Not of the list, but right on, like it goes above Beach Read. Great Big Beautiful Life. We are following this young woman who believes that she can, like, this will make her writing career if she can win this older woman who used to be like in the spotlight, and her family used to be in the spotlight, over to write her memoir. But she's not the only one to do this. There is a male love interest who's also kind of competing for the same thing. They both want to write her memoir, and it's this competition of sorts. She's sunshine, he's grumpy. The romance felt like it got hardly any attention by the author. It wasn't strongly developed. Yes, she was sunshine. Yes, he was grumpy, but it was to the point where it reminded me of SpongeBob and Squidward. Why did I forget his name? Like, that's the dynamic it reminded me of, and I just didn't like it. It was also really quick. He like changed his attitude super quickly about her, and I was like, yes, she's attractive and I'm in love with her. And I'm like, okay, I need more buildup. I need more foreplay when it comes to romances, and that's part of my problem with a lot of romances, is that there is no buildup. There is no foreplay. It is sexual attraction right off the bat, and that seems to negate any other pining. And I can't handle that. It's too quick satisfaction, and I need some teasing. Damn it. So the romance was kind of a flop. The most interesting part was learning about this woman who used to be in the spotlight, her family history. That was the most interesting part. A lot of people are comparing this to like, oh, that other one by Taylor Jenkins Reid, The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. That kind of vibe. I never read that, so I can't compare that. I did like the history aspect. I didn't so much like the contemporary aspect. I thought it was kind of boring. It wasn't a bad book, but it wasn't a great book. I rated it 3 stars, which ultimately is like mid-road, right? And for me, it can really be a tipping point. So I often think of, if it's a good 3, like a high 3 star, it's a good 3 star, it's because I want to reread it. I don't really want to reread this. So therefore, I don't want a physical copy. I did listen to this, and that's how I often choose whether or not I want a physical book after I read the audiobook, because I need a participation trophy when it comes to reading a book, listening to a book, because I'm a millennial. I don't want to generalize things like that, but I do like the idea of rereading. I'm actually starting to get better at rereading. I don't see myself rereading Great Big Beautiful Life, so it's a low 3. I'm not going to get a physical copy of it. My way to determine, because I have a limited capacity, because for a while I did want a physical copy of all the audiobooks I read. That's unrealistic and a lot of money. So that's my way of determining, do I buy this book? No, I'm not. The next book, I don't really know how many people will have it on the disappointed list, because I feel like my complaint about it is a little odd. And that is Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez. Let me try to explain this without spoiling it, because I've done this video a couple times now and I've spoiled this. So I've read Abby Jimenez before. I got into some of her backlist last summer, not this last summer, but 2024 summer, and really enjoyed it. I enjoy her books. I enjoy her romances. There's some real aspects in there that I enjoy, like heavier aspects that like she navigates, I thought, really well. I also really enjoy the male actor that she has voiced her male love interest. Love his voice. Very just, oh, so good. For Say You'll Remember Me, it was a cute premise. I liked the introduction, how our female and male characters meet, how he it comes off as an asshole, and the banter was great. He's Yvette. She is a, not social media influencer, she's like a marketing agent for like a mustard company. They don't hit it off at first. Like I said, he kind of comes off as an asshole, and then out of spite, she comes back and is like, you should take me out to dinner. And so they go on this date. It turns out to be one of the best dates that they both have, and she has to leave the next morning to move across the country. I was really curious by this point, like how the rest of the story was going to go. It kind of fell off for me after that point, because she's navigating a lot. Is having to navigate family aspects, and it was just a lot of real life like thrown at me. And that's one thing that from what's considered a romance, it was just a lot of heaviness, one thing after another, particularly as our main female character is trying to navigate also a long-term or a long-distance relationship, and he's dealing with some heavy stuff as well. It was just a little too real. That's my complaint about it. That's my disappointment with it. It was just a little too real for a romance. That's one thing with romances for me as well, not just with the teasing and needing more pining, is that romance for me tends to be a bit of an escapism of just like, oh, yes, there's some hard times, but they ultimately work out in the end. And yeah, that kind of happens here, but it was still just a lot of real life. It was a lot of real life. Also, it bugged me the cover art didn't match the story. The next disappointing book, Ebony Gate by Julia V. and Ken Babel. Ebony Gate, we're following a Miko song. There's like, she's part of one of the 8 magical families in the world, but she's not necessarily magical. She's the sword of the Song family. She moves to San Francisco, where she's trying to get away from all that, only for a death deity, or death itself, to call in a blood debt from her family, and is asking Emiko to find the Ebony Gate to keep the dead hungry spirits in the underworld. And if she can't find it in a certain amount of time, it's her soul that's going to be used as the gate. Really, really cool synopsis. I will be continuing on with this series. Can't tell you when. I have no idea. But I do want to continue on with the series. However, it was a lot. As I was reading this book, like, I was getting exhausted just because it was action after action after action after action. And I'm like, it's been days. Emiko hasn't ate or slept unless she happened to pass out from a wound. Like, I don't understand. Like, okay, and this is gonna go completely against what I had just said for Say You'll Remember Me, but this was almost too unrealistic in terms of how much action things were being thrown at us, or thrown at Emiko, and she's just like, yeah, taking it. Ooh, yeah, I have a dislocated shoulder, but I'm still gonna do this. I took like a throwing star to the knee, but I'm still gonna pack this thing through. Like, it was a little too unrealistic for me. So, like, Sailor Remember Me, too realistic. Ebony Gate, too unrealistic. I need somewhere in the middle. It was just a lot. It was a lot. But I really did enjoy it. It's just like, I wanted some, like, slow down a little bit and give me some world building, calm the fuck down. The Last Bookstore on Earth by Lily Braun Arnold. It was a book that I cover bought at a local bookstore during a lunch break one day, and I kind of just like immediately started getting into it. It's a gorgeous cover, first off, but this is a young adult, and we're following Liz, basically what she's calling it, the end of the world. Something happened. She lost her family. She's now living in an old bookstore that she used to work in. It is not holding up great. One night she ends up finding someone trying to rob her, and it's another young woman who she ends up putting way too much trust in way too quickly. I immediately kind of got frustrated, going, I don't think that's realistic in terms of how trustworthy she finds everybody right off the bat. I'm not that trustworthy now. And it's like pre-end of the world. Not only that, I feel like she didn't do much. Maybe I'm being too harsh. I'm not entirely sure. The way, I know as soon as I say it, it's gonna sound harsh. But it feels like she didn't do much because she was second guessing herself a lot. She had really low self-esteem. Liz did. And so anytime she's like, oh, I need to do this, and then she would spiral into why she can't do it because she doesn't have that much confidence in herself at all. At a certain point, she ends up getting like hurt to the point where she really can't do anything and is solely reliant on this person who tried to rob her. And to me, it just seemed like it would make sense if she was solely independent and she couldn't rely on anybody, but that's not how she was portrayed. Or it would make sense like if she was able to come out of the self-deprivation at all, but I don't think she was able to. Like, there was no clear messaging with this book, and so it kind of left me going, what the heck. I ultimately somewhat enjoyed it. I rated it 2 stars mostly because I like dystopians, because I'm always curious how we end up getting to how the author is portraying the world. Like, I like the lead up. I like the world building of this world that is the same as ours. It's just slightly different. Everything else, like, I didn't, it was just disappointing. My last disappointing book was The Council of Frogs by Matt Emmons. This was a graphic novel that was advertised to me about this time last year through Instagram, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, why not? Because I was really interested in the idea of a council of frogs, because I'm kind of ruminating in something in my head of like, I want to do more frog art essentially. But we have a field not too far away from the house that during this time of year, because it's so wet and cold, there's a lot of frogs, like a council of frogs, if you will. and they sing during this time of year, particularly at night, and I love listening to them. So when this was advertised to me, I was like, ooh, yeah, okay, and put it on my 24 of 2025. I did read it, and I was disappointed. It is a graphic novel, but it is in a weird setting. It was like not what I was expecting. I went into this very just not knowing anything. It was very much, we have a mage that was like injured in a war and ends up falling into these wetlands, and like his body not disintegrates, but like decomposes in this pond, but he's still there technically as a soul, and his magic is infiltrating things. But the war's still technically going on, and so he feels a disturbance and tasks one of his frogs to go find a wizard to help them. I don't know, it was just, it sounds cooler as I'm saying out loud than from what I remember. It's not what I was expecting, it wasn't what I was wanting. So yeah, it was not what I was looking for. Let's go into my worst book. The Library at Hellbore by Cassandra Khaw. This was one for one of the Layers book club reads. Which one was it for? It was the November full moon book club read. I tried it because I was challenging myself to read either the full moon read or the bloody read of every month, and I had tried it for November for the Library at Hellebore because it was dark academia and I wanted to give Cassandra Khaw another chance. This was the third chance I gave Cassandra Khaw. I did not like All But Blackened Teeth, and I did not finish. I DNF'd Something of the Salt, the one with the mermaid and the plague doctor. Library at Hellebore, we are following basically like it's this magical school of sorts. Something where our main character found out she can do something. I was at first like really excited because how it was explained with this magic, like the world building, like as we were leading into the school, sounded really cool. I loved some of the introduction into this world, as like particularly with our female main character, like she was describing how like the world started noticing that these magical powers were coming into being, and particularly with her and other women that were being assaulted, that's when they found their power and they needed somewhere to go. So Hellebore, the school, is where they were often sent to. But the whole premise of Hellebore I didn't like at all. Yeah, it turns out it's not what they thought it would be, and a group of students are stuck in the library at Hellebore, so that I didn't like it. It wasn't great. I think I rated it 2-star. And I think that was part of the problem, is because like I was nervous about it going in because I had already given Cassandra Khaw a couple chances. The intro into this book, like I kind of made me like ooh, maybe I could like this. And then as I kept reading, I'm like, no, no. Bookworm by Robin Yeatman. Why did I read this? This one was an odd one. Why did I think I read this it was a buzzword cover challenge for March. It was odd. I was kind of thinking of it as a literary fiction book or contemporary fiction. Basically, we are following this woman who's in a shitty marriage, to say the least, and she escapes through books. This book just ultimately left me really frustrated, actually, because she is in like a not happy marriage whatsoever. Her husband criticizes her for reading too much, that movies are better, so she keeps escaping into books, but she's very like compliant, and she ends up seeing this guy in a cafe that she's like, I want to marry him, and like dreams about going to his house every night and like cuddling with him and like having sex with him. It was just a really weird book. and I didn't like it. It gave me some icky feelings, in all honesty, mostly because the marriage wasn't great at all. The characters were not likable. And I get that with a lot of people that doesn't have to be like a thing. Like the characters don't have to be likable for them to enjoy the book. I kind of need someone to hang on to, and I couldn't with this one, so I didn't like it. Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. This was also another book club read for February's full moon book club for The Lair. I don't think I mentioned it in this. The Lair is Jan from Jan Agaton's Patreon. I've been advertising that a lot lately. But we read Witchcraft for Wayward Girls in February. I like the idea of this. I read a couple of Grady Hendrix's work before, and I can't figure out if his writing is for me or not. Read the Southern Book Club's Guide to Killing Vampires. It had some commentary that I enjoyed, but overall the book made me feel gross and I had to get rid of it because there was no way I was rereading it. I enjoyed How to Sell a Haunted House as much as you could really enjoy a book like that. I thought it was creepy, like to the I didn't feel icky reading it. I thought it was a good horror. Witchcraft for Wayward Girls. They call them wayward girls, loose girls, girls who grow up too fast, and they're sent to Wellwood Home in St. Augustine, Florida, where unwed mothers are hidden by their families to have their babies in secret, give them up for adoption, and most important of all, to forget any of it ever happened. And we're following Fern as she arrives at the home in 1970, pregnant and terrified and alone, and under the watchful eye of a stern Miss Wellwood, she meets a dozen other girls in the same predicament. Oh good, I did write a review for this, so I can read that. I gave it 2 stars. I think the topic and premise of this book was important and interesting, but ultimately felt like this was longer than it should have been, and feel conflicted that the solutions were due to magic, not to mention the use of a black token character and the further portrayal of a magic Negro stereotype, which someone else had pointed out, and I will link that down below. I was interested in and engaged in the beginning, but as the story progressed, my interest ebbed and flowed. I had no real connection to any of the characters. There was no real growth with our main characters throughout the entirety of the story. The story, I felt, was overly long and meandering at times, as were the characters' decisions and explanations of those decisions. The witchcraft and magic weren't presented in a way I was hoping. In fact, I was disappointed that the witches were seen as monsters, while those who kept up the system never truly were called out. Now that I'm saying all that out loud, that is something that I remember. There was very much like system in place, and that never got solved, really. And in a way, like, I get that this is partly historical fiction that was inspired by true events. Like Grady Hendrix even has it in the author's note that someone in his family, he learned about going through something similar. I feel like there could have been more to it. I don't think it was executed in a way that was beneficial. I feel conflicted with this one because I, like I said, like the idea, but I just didn't enjoy it. That, and it's like, for a lot of Grady Hendrix's work, is, from what I'm realizing, particularly with this one and a Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, it feels like he's being gross for the sake of being gross. There was aspects in this one and that one that I just didn't like. I understand that, like, birth, foreseen as a terror or horror, is a very real thing, but he does it in a way that is just, I don't particularly like. So that was also my issue. Victorian Psycho by Virginia Fiatto, I think it's Vito. This was another this was a bloody read for March. Okay, this makes it sound like a lot of the books that were picked in the lair, like, I didn't enjoy, but I did enjoy a lot of them. But this one, it was just super weird. We're following this governess who ends up taking on a couple of kids in this rich family's home. And she's just very odd. I don't even know how to explain this. Winifred Naughty arrives at the Ensor house, prepared to play the perfect Victorian governess. She'll dutifully tutor her charges, Drusilla and Andrew, tell them bedtime stories, and only joke about eating children. But the longer Winifred spends within the estate's dreary confines, and the more she learns of the perversions and pathetic preoccupations of the Pounds family, the more trouble she has sticking to her plan. Whether creeping across the moonlit lawns in her undergarments or gently tormenting the house staff, Winifred struggles at every turn to stifle the horrid compulsions of her past until her chillingly dark imagination breaches the feeble boundary of reality on Christmas morning. It was just weird. There was like a couple of moments that I'm like, that was kind of, like the baby dying, it just wasn't for me. Was not for me. And then my last book, I made a whole video for, and that is A Sea of Unspoken Things by Adrienne Young. That was my last video before my unexpected hiatus. I gave this 1 star. It pissed me off so much. I read Adrienne Young before. I read the Unmaking of June Farrow and really enjoyed it for the most part. But A Sea of Unspoken Things, we're following a woman who ends up coming back to her small town that is supposedly around where I live. And everything about it was just kind of wrong. It just felt like Adrienne Young Googled this area on maps and didn't bother really looking into anything about it. May have looked at the weather. That was about it. Because a lot of it just didn't make sense. So the woman comes back up to her small town because her twin brother ends up dying under mysterious circumstances. I think the police think it's an accidental gunshot in terms of someone hunting. Our main character believes it was something more than that, but isn't sure what or how. You know what? Just watch that video. I spent so long ranting about this and have talked almost every person that I could get a hold of's ear off about this book. I have a whole rant about it in the Lair Discord. It pissed me off. Not only because if I got over the whole fact that it's supposed to supposedly be set where I currently live, and everything about it was wrong, even the plot was boring as fuck. It was very meandery and it was very boring. Our main character is an artist that went down to San Francisco to try to get out of her small town. She comes back to her small town because her brother died and no one can tell her really what happened. They all think it's an accidental death. She believes otherwise, but she can't figure out why. Nobody wants to talk to each other, and there's multiple instances where they reference like, oh, you could fill an ocean with the amount of things we don't say to each other. Haha, clever. It was not good. I don't like it. I ended up so I got this, I pre-ordered it because that's the part of it. That's the main part of it. Not just like everything that I was disappointed in. It was because of how excited I was when ordering it. I heard about it and saw the cover and was like, this looks gorgeous, this sounds cool, like was so excited. And even the first page, like I remember typing in the Discord for the Lair, oh my god, I think this is local. I think this is set locally. And as I kept reading, my heart just kind of sunk. And I think that's the worst part about it, was how excited I was. And the fact that Adrienne Young didn't bother with more in-depth research outside Google Maps or even a fucking, I assume, an AI overview of this area. That was my disappointment, is that I had this like expectation because I read The Making of June Farrow and it was like beautifully written and it sounded really cool, but that was also based in the South? I think it was like North Carolina? I don't even know. I don't know. But then it started making me question of just like, how often do authors just not look into some of the settings that they're setting their books in and just get it wrong. So that was part of my issue with like one of Shay Earnshaw's books, was because she was had the setting up in Oregon, supposedly, and there was a lighthouse on a rock, and I was like, nope, not where you're saying. And so I remember ranting about that in the Lair, and other people going, yes, we agree, like LA is constantly misrepresented, the South is often misrepresented, Appalachia is constantly misrepresented and not researched enough, and people just like drunkenly point at a map going, that is. And just use like the very bare basics of research before actually setting their book there, and it's really frustrating. Okay, that's my rant. If you want to check more out, go into that video. Otherwise, those are my worst and disappointing books of 2025. If you let me know some of yours, I want to know down in the comments down below. Let me know what some of your disappointing books are, or what's a book that was set in a location that you know so well and you were so disappointed with. Like, what did it get wrong? Let me know. Rant with me. Otherwise, if you don't feel like commenting, but you still want to participate somehow, let's go ahead and put a mushroom emoji down in the comments. Otherwise, I hope you are resting. I hope you are resting, and I hope that you have an ear to listen to, or have an ear to listen to you rant about some of the irritating things that authors do. About some of the books. Mind that ear. But yeah, otherwise, I hope that you are enjoying a book that you're currently reading. I will see you in another video very soon. Cheers.